Yes, guys. Hope everyone is good. Welcome back to another episode. This one will probably be a little shorter, as you probably realised, just because with the game on the Friday, and we wanted to just focus on mainly the transfer window, a little discussion on the game as well coming up and the previous game. But hope everyone's had a good week. Yeah, about you, Andre? How have you been? What's going on?
I'll just say that I prefer to focus on football this time because some things going on in the background. So yeah, it's been a very busy week so far. Very busy weeks to be fair, not just this week. Personally, some good things, some bad things. Not me personally, but people that I care
Yeah,
about. But yeah, man. Overall, there's always people who have worse things to deal with. So I try to stay positive, and hopefully Leeds can help with that. After what happened
yeah,
with us and getting back to a good victory under the lights tomorrow. Man. What about you? How's your workload going on,
yeah.
and your days overall?
You know what, mate? It's actually been all right these last few weeks because with my scouting work, we've not had much to do with it being the transfer window, so they've stopped doing reports, obviously, and they're focusing on signings, which some have been made. So yeah, so I've not had much games to do these last few weeks, to be fair, which has been pretty good. So I've been doing my threads and my player portfolio stuff that I'm going to do a bulk of them, and then I'm going to release them slowly over the next few months. So
Good,
people, if you're
good.
interested in that, please look out. I think it's a good thing to do. A lot of people have done it and got jobs from it, or people have seen it and given them opportunities. So anyone out there, it's hard. If you want to make it in football, you've got to do more. It's probably the same in most industries. You have a platform now. We have technology. We have our phone in our hand. A lot is possible. A lot of stuff you're going to have to do yourself because it's more competitive than ever. So little things, little gains to help you stand out is really important. So not like the old days when my dad used to say you could just go to any shop, any club, any company, knock on the door, ask for a job, and then you've got one. He still tells me to do that if he's watching. He says, "Why don't you just go and knock on the doors?" I'm like, "Dad, they'll tell you to go away."
Yeah,
It's a
different
different
times,
world.
different
Yeah.
times. Because if you do that right
Um,
now, probably they'll just say they just treat that as
yeah.
unprofessional, like
Yeah. Yeah.
straightforward. And actually, I'm like that. At my work. When like this morning, for example, there's one publisher.
Mm,
Because I do in my other job outside football and media punditry, I do judicial IDV basically. So there was a one from a paper. I usually, interact with emails because it's everything is written, it's
mm,
written down, it's official,
mm,
and this one just turned up without an appointment. So I was like, I don't like that, because I might be involved, in a video call. I might be involved with
mm,
some urgent matters, urgent tasks, and
mm,
actually it was when he arrived, but eventually, I meet him, and it was a very simple thing overall. But I like to keep everything tracked down, written, because the era of the talking, I think it's over in terms of yeah, we do exchange the agreements and everything via talking. Of course, after that, everything is written down. But I like to communicate on official channels. I don't like to
mm.
talk on a face-to-face thing. There's a place for face-to-face things and a place for official things that you need to keep them written down. So
Yeah.
don't turn up without an appointment, mate.
Yeah. No, do you know what? Yeah, I guess. But then even don't want to get into it too much. But even when
Yeah,
you send emails and you're actually speaking to them to a club or a company, whatever it is. I'm just talking about football here, and then it sounds good. It sounds like you're doing well, and then they just don't reply. It's like, oh, thanks.
yeah,
No reason, Anyway,
yeah. That's what happened to me actually when I was trying to help one of my friends. Because I think I talked about that in the past. We were trying to name a public square in Reggio after Mike Mitchell, a former NBA player that played
yeah,
basically the GOAT of our basketball team. So he played for San Antonio Spurs in the 80s, Cleveland Cavaliers, Auburn University. So what I did, I said, if I'm thinking with my journalist mind,
mm,
when I'm doing that, that's a good story too. That an Italian town where we already have a public square named after Kobe Bryant, because he grew up here, for 2 years when his dad was playing for the team, from 1989 to 1991. So I was thinking like, oh, that's a good story for an American media outlet, because eventually, it's like a small Italian town, is gonna name a public square after a former Spurs or Cavaliers or Auburn University product, and they're gonna be the only town, if that happens, with two squares named after former NBA players, So I emailed basically every journalist, every media website, in San Antonio, in Cleveland. I asked help for Chris Fox, our common friend, Chris Fox, Cleveland and Auburn, not receive any reply, man. And that's mental for me, because when I was working as for the newspaper, now of course I do TV, different stuff. But when you received an email, you used to reply, So really, things are changing, man.
Yeah, no, yeah, big up Chris. I've not spoken to Chris in a while. Chris is a legend, and his son's an absolute baller as well.
It's gonna be absolutely ecstatic now that his Cavs have signed Jim Sarden, in the last couple of hours. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, mate. Apart from that, this week just been, doing my own thing. But I've been had a great conversation with my girlfriend last night, who's, as people don't know, she since she's been with me, she's always been interested in Leeds. She's always liked football. She supports a team back where she's from, in China. So she's always liked football, like proper hooligan. She used to be one of the ultras there, which is funny. It's so hilarious. Ultra culture's different over there. By the way, she wasn't a madhead that went around. But yeah, she used to be singing bit with scarf, all that stuff. But she calls herself a proper Leeds fan now. And we have some great conversations about. She always questions. She goes, "Why do I support this team? It stresses me out every day, and they're not even playing." And I went, "Yeah, this is exactly why.
That's Leeds.
This is Leeds." She's slowly understanding now that. But even the Arsenal game, she's still not over it. Like, she's just so annoyed by everything. And I went, "But that's the way it is, And her first game, we went to an academy game a few years ago, I think, where Nonto played one of his first games, I believe. But when he played for the 21s for a few weeks. But this is her first actual league game at Ellen Road. And it's under the lights against Nottingham Forest. So she's never experienced that. So I'm so excited to see how she reacts. But yeah, she loves it. She's been walking around with I Predict a Riot, March on Together on her phone. Yeah, bless her. But she's on the journey, but she's questioning every step of it, which is the right way to do it, because you should. But she's on the journey and she ain't coming off the train. Don't worry. She's a Leeds fan now.
That's loyalty. We know a lot about loyalty. Loyalty. Yeah.
But yeah.
Because you go into the game, of course, like you just said, tomorrow. So people, if you meet Lucky, of course, say hi to him.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Ask him for tips, It's going to be behind.
I'll be honest, I'm not.
Yeah. He's going to be behind Falca's bench, helping him the game. Joking, of course.
Yeah. Hey, Falca, shut up. Fair enough. Yeah, I can't wait, man. So I've said this, by the way, the membership stuff at Leeds is a joke. I mean, there's no fair way, there's no right way of doing it. I'm not complaining at that. I get it. 17 home games in a row, 17 I've applied for via the membership. And this is the first one I've got. That's in 2 years. So the last game I went to, and I've applied for 17 home games in a row. The last game I went to was at Wembley. And that game I only got in because my mate Adam, Leeds fan, got tickets in the ballot. I didn't, and I didn't get them in the normal thing. I'm only going to this game because my girlfriend got tickets in the ballot. So my account apparently is cursed.
Yeah, you've been banished from the system, basically. They've seen the name Lock and they've banished you.
Apparently. But now my girlfriend's got a membership, so her luck's gonna get me the tickets. So yeah, she got a membership.
Enjoy, man. So enjoy. Bring us the 3 points, man. Bring us the 3 points.
Hopefully. I've got a decent record at Ellen Road. Decent.
Good. Good.
But we'll see. Anyway, on to it was Arsenal, right? Was that the last game? I
Yeah.
can't remember. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, looks like a decade ago, to be fair. Looks like a decade ago for everything that happened, all the discussion of the transfers, the follow the game, yeah, it feels like a decade ago, actually.
Yeah, we won't talk about it too long because, quite frankly, I don't think there's too much to discuss. Farke mentioned it in his presser. You go into the game preparing the same. You want to believe you can win, and of course, you go into the game thinking you can win or get a point, get something, a positive result, as Farke mentioned. Called these draws and wins, they're positive results. But the reality of the situation is, although you can look at moments like, I think, marking in the box for crosses and set pieces was very, very poor. Of course, you can isolate these individual moments. For me, at the end of the day, that can happen to anyone in the world with this team. Mistakes obviously are made, but even on days, my point is, even on days where you are perfect against these teams, you get every tactical decision right, they can still beat you. They're just that good. They are so well organised, whether it's fun to watch or not. A team that is that organised and is that relentless at set pieces every week, it seems. I think they're on like 17 goals in set pieces now. They're hard to beat. They've got individual players that can destroy you. They've got players like Declan Rice in midfield that just dominate every single week.
I love him, to be fair.
Yeah, me too. Such a good player. But having said that, of course, you can look at things that you can improve, and easy goals. I think we give too many easy goals. If Arsenal outplay you, they outmove you, fair enough. You could argue this player should track, but at the end of the day, they're too good. They're too quick. They're sharp. But set pieces, even though they're good at them, I don't think we made it hard for them, is my point in those situations. I think, again, some earlier changes would have been good. Again, they might not have changed anything. But at that point where you're 2-3-0 down, let's just try that, right? I'm trying to remember what else. There's a few things that annoyed me in the game. I think Farke made his stance clear with, certain players coming on with 5 minutes to go. That's all he had, Mecha out. I think it'd have been a better game with Mecha in there, having 2 focal points up front for me, having someone to be an outlet. Again, we were deep. We couldn't get out. We lacked an outlet. But a lot of that is down to Arsenal being ridiculously good, literally one of the best teams in the world. And some of that is obviously down to, you can take personal accountability for your actions on the pitch, and the manager can take, and the coaching staff can take personal accountability for some decisions. Of course you can. It's all the same. Everyone's, I guess, to blame, or everyone makes mistakes, or at the end of the day, they're a very good team. They do this most weeks. What are your thoughts, Andre?
No, that's a proper assessment, man. I agree with almost everything, because I think it was like a carbon copy of the second half with Everton. We didn't learn much, because in the end, especially we need to consider that Bogo had missed some games due to injury. Gudmundsson missed some games due to injury. So, like we always said that you need proper replacement for the wing backs, because even when they return, they're not going to be 100% fit. They need time to get back, and in this formation, that's the most energy draining, for wing backs. So right now they are forced to stay back a lot, especially because they are facing wingers or wing backs, direct opponents, that force them to stay back. So that's why we go too deep. We go too deep, and even with Gruev, we try to play more balance in the middle. The formation is of course more balanced compared to 4-3-3, but you go way deeper and deeper and deeper as the game goes on, and that's the main difference. We've seen that at Everton when he changed eventually too late, when he brought Buonanotte and Okafor on. We needed something similar, I think, from the start against Arsenal, because in the end we already seen that against Everton, the long ball to DCL is the only solution to get out of our pressure. The problem is that DCL wins aerial duels, of course, but it's not the strong 9, hold-up 9 like Mecha is, for example. Mecha uses his body and protects and tries to get the ball with his chest, The difference with DCL is that DCL tries to win the aerial duels, not to block the ball and hold it, He tries to win the aerial duel to get the ball to his teammate, in this case Aronson, to get an advantage into space. So we were always like with Aronson wide on the left and DCL up front, between like these man mountains, like Incapie, Gabriel, these giants that they have at the back, insane depth, by the way. I agree with you. I think honestly that they have a proper chance, Arsenal have a proper chance to win everything. they are playing for this season. Honestly, even the UCL, I know that they have always usually have a deep, in form around it. I was talking with an Arsenal fan friend of mine, about this, and he said, no, eventually we're gonna have a deep in form, but I think they have the depth, to keep this sustainable and go forward in every competition they have. To be fair, insane in midfield. Honestly, I love Rice. It's a player that I absolutely love. Odegaard, the 4 goals came on,
Yeah.
so insane depth.
Mental.
Problem with us is that we don't have now, if you decide to play with Aronson as the free role playmaker behind DCL, you don't have another one capable of pressing the back line. So you are forced back, especially with the wing back staying back. And the only solution becomes the long ball to DCL, because you don't have a player if we recover the ball, like for example with Stack, with Ampadu. They are usually the two recovering the most balls, when we are deep, we build that fortress, in front of our defense. When we recover the ball, we don't have a player capable of running the counter, and carrying the ball, progressing with the ball. That's the main difference. That's something that we said, when we're talking in autumn about with the formation, about the formation before the back, because it's more balanced, of course, this one, but because we don't have like in the 4-3-3 where we have Ampadu staying like the dam, in front of the defense, and then you had Stark, Longstaff, for example, going forward, advancing up to the final third. But the problem was that I have to be careful, because I know that it means a different thing in the UK.
All right.
When they were progressing forward, they struggle to track back at times. We consider the majority of the goals came from midfielders run. I remember at Burnley, Cherno unmarked. I remember Krejci at Wolves. Many Krupi to the long ball to and Tell the long ball. And we had the CBs exposed more. Because I remember against Tottenham, Strauk 1v1, Longstaff didn't track back. Many examples. Now it's more balanced. The problem is that we have two players basically, for example, Ampel and Gruev, in front of the centre backs now. And when they recover the ball, the only thing they can do is play the long ball to Aronson on DCL. So that there's a huge gap between the strikers, the striker actually, because Aronson is not a striker, the striker, the playmaker, and then the rest of the team. It's like there's a gap in the middle, no man's land, where Stark usually gets lost, in certain situations. Then you have DCL and Aronson, and then you have every other player at the back. And it looks like mentioning Forest, getting into Forest at the game in City Ground. We played in a similar way with the back four. Then after the substitutions, the only player that was progressing there was Gudmundsson in that case. The problem is that now the wingbacks can't do that because we are too deep. And even when they progress, they are not fully 100% fit, because they had injuries. Gudmundsson missed some games, Bogut missed some games. Justin now was substituted at half time because of a knock. So it's an engineering situation. And again, we go back again to the depth, and also to Farke actually, because apart from the depth, I think we need to start with a 3-4-3, honestly. And 3-4-3 is not with the stack advancing, 3-4-3 is with the two midfielders, and you have, for example, Aronson and Okafor behind DCL, or Aronson and Buonanotte, Aronson and Yonton, these players. I think we need another one capable of moving behind DCL to keep the team higher up the pitch and try to put pressure on their build-up, because we don't do any pressure on the build-up now in the last two games, especially after the second half of Everton.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of imbalance there. It's frustrating, and we mentioned this when Stack joined, and people saw a few clips and said, "Look, this guy is quick; he can drive forward." No, there's a difference between being a ball carrying player and being able to do it every now and again. Of course, he can. The professional footballers, if he's got a straight line in front of him in this space, of course he can run with it into the space. He's got long legs, long limbs. He can get there early. He can see off defenders with his frame. But we're talking about repetitive actions. We're talking about players who can consistently sprint forward with the ball. We don't have that player. We don't. We just don't. And these are the type of games where that player is missed massively. In games where we're a little more dominant, when we can hit our front players earlier or more effectively in the game, that's fine. It doesn't really go amiss. But in games against better teams where there's a really big gap between DCL and everyone else, it seems. This is where that player is really key, and we don't have that profile. Hopefully, we stay in the league, and that is something we can address in the summer, because I do think we need that profile, particularly if you want to be a little more unpredictable in these bigger team games. Have a little more kind of stuff about you that it's not just a long ball, because we did play so many long balls to DCL and hardly any of them came off. He's up against two ridiculously good centre backs.
Yeah.
Some of the best in Europe. Such a difficult task. And Aronson's trying, he's running around, but he doesn't know where to go. He's not sure to come short behind DCL or in behind him. Yeah, the balance was missing. But again, you know, it's annoying because we've been on a good run recently. We can't let this game dictate our season, and it won't. The players, it won't.
Yeah.
You can be disappointed. You put a lot of work into these games, arguably more, because people say the write-offs, they're not. I promise you now, if you're playing a big game against top of the league, you want it more than anything, because that's the biggest scalp you can get in the season to beat the league leaders. These players wanted to do that. The reality is, if the league leaders are playing as well as they can, and you're not fully on it on the day, they'll beat you. A lot of work goes into it. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. All we can do now is react to that against Forest, and we have to. That's a big game in a different way. Big.
Absolutely.
Big game,
6 pointer. 6 pointer.
Yeah. I can't speak. I can't speak. Specifically as well, looking at West Ham and Burnley, who are playing.
Yeah.
Same weekend.
Absolutely.
That's a big weekend. So this is a game now where this is a win for me. I'm not taking a point in this one. I want a win.
Absolutely.
This is important. This is what it means now. So, but I just want, before we go on the transfer window, and we'll do this next bit very briefly, because I know people want to hear about it, and we have our thoughts, obviously. So for me, just very quickly as well, Okafor, Nonto. For me, I'll tell you where I'm at, Andrea. I think Nonto should now take the Okafor place. I think he should be above him. And I say that because I don't think he's been outstanding. But one thing that Nonto's done for me when he comes on, he's a very good combination player. If we need to retain the ball or cover ground in terms of doing 1-2s, pass and move, I think he's actually quite good at that. He's frustrating 1v1, and his final ball can be a bit iffy. But when he came on against Arsenal, he created combinations, and Everton as well. And I like that in a player. Okafor right now, for me, is not beating players 1v1 successfully. He looks quite one-dimensional now. He's trying the same thing every time. His interplay, so his combination play with other players doesn't seem to be very good. He's lacking in confidence, and he doesn't look extremely fit in terms of his match sharpness. So I think it's time for me now to take him out the firing line and to play Nonto as that guy where he usually plays. What would you say on that?
Well, I agree with that. If we want to play with a 1v1 outlet, absolutely. Because I think Nonto deserves for sure more minutes, compared, especially looking at Okafor. Okafor has been underwhelming after the start of the season. He had a good spells, into that, but was never consistent. It was never like when we had Solomon last season, you had, okay, we have Solomon, he's going to take his man, he's going to be a force, he's going to be a difference maker for us. Okafor was signed to be a difference maker for us. He hasn't made a difference, unfortunately. For the similar reasons to the usual reasons that we talked about in the summer, when he signed from Italy. In Italy was struggling with match fitness because, he picks up minor injuries here and again, in between periods. Then he struggles to get back to his proper match fitness, And another thing for me is apparently there was this rumor going around, in the summer that he was coming to Leeds. He picked Leeds because, of course, he wanted out of AC Milan, but especially after the failed, very underwhelming loan spell with Napoli, he wanted out, but wanted to play in this new club as a winger. The problem for me is he's not a winger. He isn't a winger. He's at least a Premier League winger, because in the Premier League, you need to have intensity. It's not like in Italy where there's a lot of gaps. The Premier League is a transitional game. It's a transitional match, the match in the Premier League. In Italy, usually the teams are very split, and there's opportunities. Look at the Leao AC Milan, for example, to have a proper example at his former club. He thrives. I think he will struggle at times in the Premier League, but he thrives because they usually switch the side, and there's not the similar intensity in the Premier League. If it was like that in the Premier League, you'll have two players right into him at the first chance, But in Italy, they allow a lot the 1v1. And you see dribblers more, they emerge more because of the intensity and the pace in Serie A. I don't think he's a Premier League winger. I'm sorry. I think when he signed, I think he can work as a false nine or as a second striker. I think his proper position is second striker. The problem is that even as a second striker, he struggled to leave his mark. He had some good spells. I think when he came on against Everton, he was all right. He tried to get his man on, but the problem is it was sharper, because he had just come on compared to the Everton defenders. Gnonto, on the other hand, I think he works better as an impact player, but now pound for pound, you need to look at what's giving you more, when the better signs. Because players, when they are not performing or producing consistently, or at least turning up a proper performance, you need to make them feel the pressure. Like your place in the starting 11 is under threat. So, or even in the pecking order in this case, because of course Okafor doesn't always start, especially in the recent run of games. So if you're not playing well, there's a player behind you that's progressing and may take your spot in the pecking order. And Gnonto is working to do that. If we don't think like that with an outlet from the wide areas, I agree with you. My view, however, is that we should play. Of course, there's the discussion about, and I'm going to touch that very briefly about Buonanotte, but I think we should play with two playmakers behind DCL. People laughed. I think it was a comment that Enya Lugo maybe made, the 210s, or another pundit, I cannot remember. But actually, you can call them 210s, but you have two creators, creators is the proper word, of course, tens, creators, call it as you wish, like Aronson on the left and Buonanotte on the right, they can move around, they can switch, Buonanotte is more used to the winger position compared to Aronson, of course, but that allows you also to put the pressure when you're off the ball to the back line, because you know that they are hard workers in terms of putting the pressure up. So, and that brings you to more internal central players, behind DCL. And DCL is usually isolated with Aronson on the left. You put a similar player next to him, there's a chance that you're going to keep the ball more, in the final third with the long balls, especially, or the through balls, especially because we don't have anyone when we're struggling under pressure that's coming towards the ball in the middle. Because Stack is trying to do that when he progresses, but he's not a creator, he's a balanced midfielder in a certain sense, more balanced in this formation. But he's not a player that you get the ball to him and he turns around like Buonanotte can do, like Rutter used to do. So I'm really open to that solution, like Aronson, Buonanotte. Of course, Buonanotte, like I was saying, he hasn't played much Chelsea, so there's also the topic of how fit he really is, in terms of reconditioning a player.
Yeah.
But I really like that solution. Also because if you have two more certain players, you keep the balance of the team higher because you're controlling the ball more in those areas. And you also allow the two wing backs who are really blocked down at this stage of the season, right now in the recent run, to get forward more, because you don't have a wide threat. You have more internal threats. And the wide threat comes then from Gudmundsson and Bogle progressing forward, making overlaps. So you have it's like a 5-4-1 in a certain sense, of possession. But then when you're progressing, becomes like a 3-4-2-1 basically. 3-4-2-1, not a 3-4-3. It's a 3-4-2-1 with two playmakers. Then you have Gudmundsson on the left and Bogle, and you can play 1-2s a lot, and then find spaces get the ball into decent spaces, like for example Bogle at Everton. When it happened when Stack was actually playing in that area, the area I see Buonanotte into, on the right hand side of the final third, and it was playing through balls to Bogle in that sense. I can see that with Buonanotte and Aronson behind DCL, mate.
No, I agree. I think that's what Fark wants to do as well going forward. But taking his comments on board that he mentioned yesterday in the press conference about Buonanotte, it sounds very similar to a few other players where it's you need to take your shirt. You can't just come in and have it, you've got to prove in training that he's got to do that. So that's for him to do now, and I hope he does because he's a very good player. And yeah, I think that'd be perfect. I think it'd be really good. And then you've got an option of Mecha coming on if you want to go a little more physical and direct as well. You know, Mecha as well can run channels if he needs to hold the ball up. But I like it. Yeah, the two little creators, busy creators, hardworking creators. Where I actually work is similar to that. They play two kind of tens, kind of inside forwards players just next to and around the striker. It's just about attacking and finding spaces really in that role. There's not a specific kind of title to put on that area. It's you play close to him, you attack the spaces, you find the spaces. That's your job, right? It's like Harrison does now. There's not necessarily in possession a specific role or formation for him. He's got a job, and his job is to attack spaces. You're the creator. That's on you. Where can you input the game? Where can you affect the game with your creativity and your movement? And it'd be the same for Buonanotte, of course. Slightly different players, but they can both bring kind of a similar outcome, which would be supplying balance and helping DCL. So I agree. It'd be them two would be good there. I'd like that. Just need Buonanotte now to get to that level to start and play, and hopefully we get the Buonanotte at the first half of the season last year when he was at Leicester because he was ridiculously good. Obviously, he dropped off when they changed manager, and I think he fell out with Ruud van Nistelrooy, didn't he?
Van Nistelrooy, yeah.
Yeah, but he's a very good player on his day. He's not played in a long time, and we have to consider that he's not played a lot of football all season. He's played one game, full game. It's not a lot.
Yeah,
that'll take weeks.
Charlton, in the FA Cup, not in the league, I think even.
In fact, I mentioned, he's not just going to come in and get a shirt. That's not how it works. And it isn't how it works. It doesn't matter how good the player is. How good is the player right now in training? How's he performing? You got to earn it because these players are playing well. These are good players that he wants to come in over. You can't just come in and do that. So hopefully he takes that shirt. But yeah.
Yeah. And
right.
I want to ask you to a split one because you asked me are you picking Okafor or Gnonto, That's the other discussion, going on right now for Forest. Cardallo or Lucas Perry?
Oh, ask me about goalkeepers, jeez. Mate, I'm sticking with Darlow.
Yeah, me too, man.
Purely because even though, look, we know what Cardallo can make mistakes. He has done all his career. Not like all his career, but every now and again in his career is what I mean. He's done it. Yeah. I remember when he was at Newcastle, he made one or two, he dropped a few as well. But what Cardallo is a calming influence on the defence. Like you said, a pet peeve of mine in football is when players over-celebrate saves or corners or a tackle. I don't like it. One thing I absolutely loved, and I know he's been controversial with his comments in the last few days about Leeds. Well, a lack of comments about Leeds. Calvin Phillips going to Sheffield United when he got asked about his favourite memory, and he said it was winning the treble. Everyone lost their head. Well, he's been political. He's still a Man City player, of course.
Media briefed.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, so I remember when Calvin used to do big tackles and next to the crowd, he didn't celebrate. He got up, got on with it. That's your job, And I think keepers that just are always active and screaming, it's relax and be calm. Let's get the job done and celebrate full time. That's what I always think. Give each other a high five or a pat on the back, but get on with it. It's your job. So for me, just for that pure reason, just in confidence in the players in front of him, I'd go with Darlow. There's a clip going around of Perry. I think it was in a cup he played in last year, and some of the saves. And this is the point. I'm not judging Perry how good he can be and how good he has been, but right now he's not adapted to the league, and he needs to realise that maybe it worked at Lyon, but with these players, I think it's clear they need a calming player behind them, and Darlow is that, and Perry needs to be that, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that, and also I would say that Perry kept this place after many mistakes, that cost us points. Newcastle, Man United, Aston Villa, Forest, many mistakes, adapting to the rhythm of the league, to the transitions, especially commanding his box. He struggled. So Darlow just made one mistake, basically, last game. And I think he was eventually, the mistake was not shouting and DCL get out of the way, keep his ball. Because in the end, he needed to punch the ball, actually. He needed to punch the ball. He didn't. He wasn't vocal in that sense. He was too calm, We need that, but not in that specific action. We didn't need that. But yeah, I'm sticking with Dal honestly because it gives me more guarantees compared to Perry. Of course, it's not like he's Buffon and Perry is he's the worst goalkeeper in the world. But problem is that probably we need to address that. Perry was a good transfer. I keep saying that honestly. I'm not changing my mind. It was a good transfer on paper. Sometimes players don't adapt to the league. Even other players were signed. Look at Florian Wirtz, for example. On paper was a great transfer for Liverpool. He struggled to adapt to the league for a lot of games during this season. So sometimes transfers just don't turn out. There's not someone to blame for that, because in the end, if you're picking out players, to play in a different system, okay, then you have someone to blame. But in this case, we had signed a very good goalkeeper. Last season was one of the best goalkeepers in Ligue 1.
Yeah.
But this season he has the worst save percentage in the league. So he had his chance, I'll stick with Al, honestly. One mistake doesn't mean, okay, one mistake you're out. So otherwise, every keeper that comes in, is going to be worried. If I make one mistake and I'm out, it's like, okay, you are making one mistake, I'll put in Perry in. Perry comes the next game, mistake, okay, I'm putting Dallo back in. Dallo make a mistake, okay, Melia gets back, get changed, you're back into goal, Yeah, so I just stick with Dallo, honestly.
And the managers hate changing goalkeepers. It's just so distracting. Yeah. It's something they don't want to do. They want one goalkeeper that works and can work for the season. So I think Farke doesn't want to have that conversation. Just wants Dallo to do well so he can keep him in. But yeah. Right. How do we tackle this? The transfer window's closed. Do you want to start, Andre? Do you want to set us off?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Because I've been very, very vocal about my points, on Twitter. I think that if we stay up, the credit is solely on Farke for making this squad work. Honestly, to be fair, because if you look at our direct rivals, they have better depth than us. They had weaknesses. They bought players in that open spots, in the depth. We had just focused the whole window on Stan Larsen. People now there's this notion that but the money was coming from next season transfer. Yeah, okay, but there's no change in that. To be fair, if you're deciding to bring one player 6 months earlier, you are also strengthening for next season. Because if you stay up, you already have one player and you have one transfer less to get. So you have already covered that. Eventually, you are covering that open spot 6 months earlier compared to when you were planning to do that. So I don't see honestly a big difference with that.
Yeah, I accepted in the Championship when they said this. They said we have enough. We don't want to spend players that are good enough now, but not good enough for the Premier League. I understand that, but I agree in the sense that any player that we bring in now obviously will be a player that will be useful next season. Right? There is those players.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got
absolutely. And honestly, that's 40 million. You don't need to spend 40 million on a transfer window, and also the fact that it's a difficult window. I don't agree. Honestly, there's been various examples, of players moving around this window. Usually you had players staying for a full season. Now you see players that have signed for a club in June, in July, in August. They are not playing. They call their agent and say, okay, I'm not playing. I want to leave. And after 6 months, you have players leaving. Look at Napoli, Lang at Napoli. There's other examples. Also in top clubs, moving around. So the transfer window has changed. The opportunities are there. Honestly, look at Nets, for example. We obviously knew who he was. We knew who he was. Want to underline that we knew who he was because it was a good opportunity. So there's also other players like Wolfsburg signed to two centre backs. They have an abundance of centre backs. There was an option there for a backup to get one of their players that felt threatened by the surplus of centre backs at Wolfsburg. Now the opportunities were there. Look at the Serie A clubs. They have covered basically all the open spots. Apart from Juve and AC Milan. From the strikers. But yeah, honestly, my main worry is that, of course, if you look at the 3-5-2, Farke, people say he was lucky, he changed because he felt his job threatened. You still have to make that decision though.
Yeah.
When he was at AC Milan, and you still have to, you still need to have the guts then to keep going and transforming, because the 3-5-2 at City then was not the same 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 that we played in the following games.
Yeah, very different.
Look at that. Look at Aronson. Look
Yeah.
at
Metra.
Stack.
No,
Look
Metra
at
as
Mecha.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Players have transformed into that, because the plan for the first part of the season, or the transfer that were made, people say they were made for a different formation. They were not, because if you look at the different one, the 4-3-3, we always said, okay, look at the 4-3-3. Maybe we need another one where Byram is, because Byram is like Liam Cooper, Berardi in his final season, it's the type of player. We have the backup here. Of course, I always said, for me, Gruev at the start of the season is not good enough for the different intensity in the Premier League. He had some good games, but going forward, I don't see him here as a player for the long term. I'm sorry. I like the player, honestly, when he plays. But, okay, good guy, hard worker, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you ask him to do something, he does it. But long term, for me, I would have liked like ample Stack, because we didn't know how Stack would have adapted, in that sense. And a running number 8, box to box number 8, where the gap is now on the Stack, because in the end, the player with more pace is Tanaka. The problem, like you pointed out, mate, last week, is Tanaka works better in a possession-based system, and these days we're not playing that possession-based system because other teams don't allow us to do that. Because when we're playing this, you had the 6 staying back, the left back and the right back going forward. You had 2 wingers with Aronson not performing in this system, struggling in this system. Then you had Stack advancing into this position, Tanaka or Longstaff staying in this area. When we were going forward, we didn't have the pace here and the intensity to track back. So we were always open. Remember, Mattistel here against Strauk with Tottenham, Krejci pushing through here. There's many other, Chauna in this area. There's many other examples, of players making Kudus too from here going in this space. There were always gap. We were always broken in the middle because the 2 number 8s didn't have the pace to track back after that. So the problem is we recruited the right players. Like Stack was a good signing. Gudmundsson was a good signing. Bjork was a good signing, but he wasn't playing in a 4-3. When Strauk was injured, he wasn't great. He struggled because he's a player that is great for a back 3. So the change eventually happened, but look at that. We don't have the proper depth to sustain that because, for example, Biol was injured. Now Justin is injured too. You just have 4 center backs. I'm talking about natural center backs, by the way, because people now are talking like, oh, you have a player capable of adapting that. So if we are reasoning like that, you should consider as center backs also Ampadu, Gruev, and Justin. But they are not center backs. They are not, like people said, James Justin had 1 game at right center back, in the place where Rodon is, had a good game and say, oh, now we don't need another backup center back, because we can have Justin. Okay, move Justin behind Rodon, for example, in the pecking order if one of these is injured. You have Gudmundsson and Bogle. And the veteran Byram. Where is the backup? Where is the depth to sustain that? So the other thing that I don't get is there were not opportunities for left backs. I look at the Bundesliga, I look at the Premier League, I see a lot of clubs getting a left back and a left wing back. So the opportunities were there actually. If it's 2026, people can open internet and look at the operations, so there's no point in saying there were not opportunities. You can literally check the opportunities that happened, transfer that happened, and see there were clubs that seized these opportunities. One thing is not seizing the opportunities or not investing, and a different thing is not having the opportunities, not finding the opportunities. So yeah, for me, mate, to cut this short, we don't have the proper backup at centre back because we're relying on the new Stuart Dallas, Justin to move here. If Justin is unavailable, we will see probably Ampad or Gruev, if one of these is not available. The other thing is a matchup up front at Miss already missed some games because of injuries. It's always been like that in his career. You have Pirot, who cannot work as a number 9 because we play with the long ball now. We try to hold the ball up and progress to the number 9, but Pirot cannot do that, absolutely. We have covered the weakness that we have. We were chasing Bakwa, for example, Pike Shaw. We wanted a winger, we needed one. Now we have covered with a player that can also play more central in Buonanotte. The problem for me is that long term, we are a DCL, not a target 9. We are a DCL based team. If DCL is not available, you have Mecha, who will constantly had so far this season injury problems, unfortunately, because otherwise he's been good, but he's always struggling with his match fitness, because when you are out for a few games, then when you return out for a few games, you always carry on these problems. It takes time to actually get back to your best. Then you have Pirot, who for me is one of the reasons we weren't able to sign a striker, honestly, because according to the reports, he didn't want to leave. But then as a club, especially because he's out of contract next season in 2027, his value with him sitting at the bottom of the pecking order, playing just 5 minutes against Arsenal, for example, that tells you a lot. His value is going to decrease even more, And the only offers he received were from Scottish clubs and clubs in the Championship. He sees himself above the Championship, but if he doesn't play for 6 months, the only clubs that will reach out for him again will be Championship clubs, because he hasn't proved that he can that he belongs so far in the top tier. So his value is going to decrease again. It probably is not going to turn, if you are planning to sell him, next summer, into profit. It's not turning into profit. That the only hope you have is Suriname qualify for the World Cup, and he has a good World Cup. That's the other thing. Him and the Melia situation, because again, we were not able to offload Melia, even a mutual contract termination, in order to free up a spot in the 25 Premier League squad, So yeah, for me, it wasn't a great window. I'm very disappointed, honestly. Good that we got Buonanotte, but there's a gap here for me behind Gudmundsson. Bayram can cover that, of course, in emergency, but we needed a similar profile to Gudmundsson to give us that attacking edge, that overlap, those central runs with the ball that he makes here. Bayram cannot do that consistently. He can play more like Justin. Justin, when he played the cover for Gudmundsson, he was playing here like Firpo last season. He was staying here, and he had Aronson moving on the left, So yeah, I think we needed to strengthen, also distribute that money, even spending cheaper with the less money spent, for a backup left wing back costs less, the backup center back costs less. And maybe finding like Troy Parrott, a more versatile second striker, 9, where you're spending less money compared to Stan Larsen, So yeah, I'm very underwhelmed, honestly, because I think it's really depending on these 11 players, the starting to stay fit. But if we are missing Ampadu, big danger for me in midfield, because he's monumental for us. He's a game changer for us. And same as DCL. If we are missing DCL and Gudmundsson, the formation completely changes. And you are also forced, for me, at times, if certain players are not available, or you have injuries or suspensions, to revert back to the 4-3 that wasn't working at the start of the season, mate. That's my full overview,
Yeah, thank you, mate. For me, I'll put this. This is coming from. I'm trying to separate fan and work. This is coming from a more work me. That kind of, I'm looking at this from a pure squad planning perspective. Just looking at spaces where short, looking at profiles that can help. Farke mentioned a lot in his press conference about profiles and players. People say we need this player, and say no, we need this profile. That's true. You identify a profile that you need. So basically, what traits do we miss in that area? Like we said, in midfield, we miss a ball carrying midfielder. That would be a profile a player would look for. That's what he's suggesting, and that's right. Yeah. Now, but what we do lack, clearly you can see from this, and this is all we're saying, we didn't do our videos looking for 30, 40 million pound players. We were very specific. We tried to be very realistic. We literally said no more than 10, 15 million, because we wanted it really, we tried to do it properly. So I know people saying, "Oh, every fan just wants £40 million players." That's not what we were asking for at all. We're not asking for 5-6 players. We just looked at the spaces, looked at the profiles we were missing, looked at the players we were missing in those positions, put them together, and went, right, what does this squad, looking at it, need? And you can see it from here. The squad needs another centre back. I don't think that's argued. I think that's obvious. When we're playing a back three, we have one spare centre back. One.
Yeah.
And Biol's just come back. Now, people mentioned Justin. Justin is our backup fullback on both sides and our backup centre back. That's one player covering 3 positions, Stuart Dallas. Right?
Yeah.
In terms of squad planning, that's not ideal at all. It's not. Justin also has a dodgy injury record.
Yeah, true.
Talking about Sam Byram, and look, I love Sam Byram. It was genuine. When I was at college, when I played more fullback, I used to watch Sam Byram. I used to love Sam Byram. Still do. He's a legend. But is he a Premier League player? No. Sam Byram is here for the team, the squad, the environment, the standards, the club. That's what he's here for, right? A good on him. He deserves that, in my eyes.
Yeah.
But he should not be the backup. He should not be the first backup when Justin is playing, which he is. Now Sam Byram's the only fullback, the only one we have on the bench. That's it. Just Sam Byram in the Premier League. That's looking from a squad planning perspective. That's a concern for me, right? That's a worry. So centre back for me and full back. Even if we'd have brought in one player who could do both, maybe play left centre back and wing back, fine. I'd have accepted that. It's better than nothing. It's better than being really open. That gives Justin a little more focus on the right side. Goodmanson as well. There's a player that can come in. If Stroud gets injured, there's a player that can come in. That works for me. My issue was that I think Farke's press yesterday was very telling. Now, what Farke's doing really well, and he obviously is, he's a good leader. He knows how to create a good environment. He's doing that, and he's done that, and he made that clear. He's got these players. We've got this far. There's no reason why we can't end like we have. And I agree. Of course, I like these players. I really do. I like our players. But there's no doubt about it. He's been left short. Two can be right. Of course he's going to defend his players and what he's got. And he didn't want to speak about profiles they've missed out on because he didn't want to disrespect his current players and he wanted to put full focus on his current players. 100% get that. Farke's a ridiculously good leader. I really like him. I know people hate us saying that, but I do. He knows how to keep a squad happy and keep them well. And now it's full siege mentality now. These are the players I've got. I'll work with these players. We've done well with these players. We will continue to do well with these players. 100%. Get it. But he said 4 times, and I'll get the exact quote he said. He said 4 times, let me find the quote. I adapt to the reality. He said that before. He's never said that before. I adapt to the reality of the situation we're in is what he was referring to. Regarding finances, players, da-da-da. After every quote he was asked about bringing this player in, he said, but I adapt to the reality. The reality is, from what he said in these things, that we're not getting any more players. You need to adapt to that.
Yeah.
And he will do that because he doesn't make excuses in these things. People say he makes excuses. I don't understand that narrative. I think it's ridiculous. There's so many managers that make so much more excuses every week. You get managers in press conferences every week saying, I need this, 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 and this player. Farke never does that. There's one time he mentioned a goalkeeper and he still didn't get one, by the way.
Yeah.
So, like you said, my focus now after this is fully on Farke, but it's clear from the presser that he would have liked 1 or 2 more profiles. He didn't get them. So what he's going to do now is going to put his head down, focus on the job, keep this squad in the league and keep it in the Premier League. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it now. It frustrated me because, again, saying there's no opportunities, I disagree personally. I think there was a few good. Luca Netz, he brought up Luca Netz himself. I think it was Adam Pope asked him about the Forest squad. Just, they've got some good players. And he went, yeah. He also, I've got the exact quote here. Let me just find it.
Yeah.
About Luca Netz. Let me just find it. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm waiting. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he
but
said they have added some quality players. Luca Nets, for example, and he actually laughed when he said Luca Nets, which was funny. He said he worked with him at Gladbach, also a very promising young talent. I promise you now, go watch that little bit back. I'm convinced Daniel Farke wanted Luca Nets and we didn't get him. I'm convinced he wanted him. It would have made so much sense. It just would.
yeah,
And the fact that he brought him up and laughed when he said his name, a little giggle, he did a little giggle, makes me think, yeah, Farke wanted him. I think he's throwing that in there. Farke's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. But he didn't get that. It's not big changes. We weren't asking for big changes, crazy changes. Just one or two little deals that just help solidify where we are, help our current players, help Goodmanson if he's injured or needs a rest, help Strauch or Rodon or Biol if they need a rest or they're injured. Again, have a different option up front potentially. We didn't do it. And it's frustrating and annoying. But I like this squad. I like these players. What I will say, just want to say this. People talk about recruitment team. Our talent ID, I actually think is really good. So us identifying, I can't speak. What is wrong with me? Us identifying players, I think he's good. Look at the players we've signed. We identified some good players. Biol, Bornau, they've come in, they've looked good, especially in the back three. Justin's worked really well. Goodmanson has been excellent. Stacks adapting well. You could go through the team. Calvert-Lewin, obviously, Mecha. Okafor, Perry, not so much. But
yeah,
yet,
I will say that.
But with Perry, of course, he looked very good last year. There's probably nothing. We're probably all shocked at why Perry isn't performing well. But our talent ID is good. We identify good players clearly. Most of our signings have worked. And if most of our signings didn't work, we'd be bottom or near bottom, obviously. So it's worked. The players are good. We should have used that talent ID to just get one or two more cheap deals. And I think we could have. That's my concern. I think we could have. But what do I know? Farke mentioned many times about financial stuff in the press conference. Yeah. I don't know how this works because we were going to put £40 million down for Strand Larsen. I can't remember Jern. I think one of them said it was a loan to buy, whatever. I don't know.
Buy, yeah. Baron Cross.
It's annoying. It's frustrating. But Farke mentioned limited resources many times in his thing. There's inner frustration there, but he's not going to let it bother him. He's not going to let it bother the team. He's going to focus. That's where I'm at, mate, right now. There's not what we can do. It's what it is. Let's go stay in the league.
Yeah.
And I back these players. I do. I like them.
Absolutely. I do too. The problem is that they need the proper backup for me. And like I said last summer, if we stay up, that's huge criteria. Last summer I called it a miracle. Now we have Buonanotte too. So at least we have one more player, But eventually, I think that would be a monumental achievement if we stay up, because the team around us, Forest, West Ham, also team in mid-table above us, they all strengthen and brought team players. The thing is, again, the quotes that you read, Farke happy to work with this group of players. He wants to protect the harmony. In terms of protect the harmony means not complaining publicly about what didn't happen, because so far there's this narrative of bringing certain players in might have disrupted the harmony of the group. The harmony of the group is disrupted if you sell players that are key players in that group, not if you bring in one or two players. That's mind-boggling for me, honestly. Especially looking at my local team, Reggiana, that have sold 4 starters in this window. That's gonna take a toll. It doesn't take a toll if you bring in 1 or 2 players. You're not disrupting the harmony of the group. For me, it's mind-boggling, honestly, that notion. Absolutely mind-boggling. And again, hearing what Farke says, I called him like the spokesperson, last season of the club, or 2 years ago, when during that chaos of the relegation clauses, he was the only one giving answers to the fans, speaking on behalf of people in charge of the transfers, people in charge of the finances. He was like the only person speaking, the only individual speaking of the club. Right now, he's completely acting as a shield. He's shielding everyone, the players, the recruitment team, everyone. And people see him and say, "Oh, that's his fault." And eventually, if results don't come up, with these open weaknesses in the squad in terms of depth, he will be the one paying the price. Trust me, he will be the one paying the price, despite showing that it could have been done with this formation. But this formation, long term, in an intensity league, the most intensive one in the world, it needed proper backup. He will be the one paying the price. If things don't go well, he will be the one paying the price, but it's not fair, honestly. It will be fair if we are not playing well. The problem is that we will play well in that formation. Then Gudmundsson got injured, now he's returned, but not 100%. Mecha got injuries. You had Stark now is injured. Longstaff was injured, Rodon was injured. Biol was injured. Look how many Justin is injured now. Look at James was injured. Look at how many players I've already named in terms of injuries. And despite all of that, he achieved 11 games unbeaten. 11 games with just one loss, including the FA Cup, of course. Just one loss. The Newcastle won, and we all know what happened there, So if we stay up, credit to Farke eventually. Now, he's speaking more openly for me, especially the goalkeeper one, because he knows that in contrast with what was the situation last summer, last summer there were doubts about him being a Premier League manager. A part of the fan base was criticizing him. They were pointing out of course, that's fair, honestly, because you can criticize the performances, you can criticize what you don't like, But eventually now, after that positive run, I would say the 90% of the fan base is behind him. So he feels that backing, and he feels more open to speak about his real thoughts, because I don't think everything he says on the press conferences, there's a lot of things that you can read under the lines, but like I said, he's acting like a shield for the club. He's shielding everything, despite maybe not agreeing with how things are done, because for me, every single manager will complain that he has found a solution after the start of the season when we were completely struggling with this one. We're completely struggling with this one. He find the solution. Maybe he was forced to, but eventually, he made adjustments. You don't get lucky with changing at Man City and then go with 11 games with just one loss, honestly, to be fair. With all the injuries happening, with all the problems that we have to, from the start of the season as a newly promoted side. So eventually, if we stay up, for me, Farke is the one to credit, honestly. And even on recruitment, you touched briefly on recruitment. You can recruit good players. Stack was a good player. Beer was a good player. The problem is that we were so top like this at the start of the season. We recruited for that. We were not recruiting for 3-5-2. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been chasing Pike Shaw, for example.
Yeah.
So, there's always research behind this. You wouldn't have been chasing Pike Shaw because Pike Shaw would have played there, in place of Okafor. And even Diarra and Sadiki, they would have been perfect there, because we were planning to do that. Then eventually we got stuck and played him here. Look at this heat map, for example, at Hoffenheim, he was playing all around, especially in this area as a pivot, a balanced midfielder, sometimes as a 6 or sometimes as a beside the number 6, but he was playing more in this area, off the ball, especially. He used to get forward too, but not in the current role, His current role at the start of the season wasn't working. Now it's working because he has more balance, He has more balance if we play like that, in the 3-4-3. In the 3-5-2, less balance, honestly. But I think the solution was there. Like, this is working, get me the players for depth. Because if we are missing Gudmundsson, Calvert-Lewin, and Ampadu, you miss 3/4 of the team for me.
Yeah, they're very
If
important.
one of these players is missing, suspended or injured, the team completely changes, The team completely changes. So I think the credit should go to Farke, honestly. If we stay up, it will be monumental for me.
Yeah. I just want to so you did a really good thread the other day about this, and people go check it on Andrea's Twitter. It's very good, very in depth, very good. Now there were some comments about it, obviously, and one said formations are not important during recruitment. I promise you that is rubbish. Respectfully, that is rubbish, and I can tell you that because for the last 2 years I've been doing recruitment based on where players play in a formation. Now, you're not recruiting specifically for example, if you go a 4-3-3, you don't want one type of player, but you're recruiting for one that can play as a winger, obviously. If you're playing for back three and you're playing two in behind the striker, right? Your profile of the two in behind the striker will be different to the winger, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. They might play a similar role, they might go out wide, but can they do the bit inside? The different profiles are different players. Also, what's the striker? Is he a target man? Does he run in behind? If you're playing with 2 up front, for example, 4-2-2, you have a different profile to be playing 1 up front. Of course you will. Right? It's completely different. You're playing a midfield 3, you might have different profile to a midfield 2. What's the shape in midfield? Are you playing 2 DMs? Are you playing 1 DM with 2 in front? Are you playing 1 DM, a box-to-box, and an attacking midfielder? These are different profiles, completely different profiles. And of course, it matters what formation you recruit for. Now, in your report, if I do a report on a player, for example, and he's an inside forward, and I think he could play as a wing back, I would say in there, I think he can adjust to be a wing back as well. And I'll explain why. Of course, I watch a player and I think he could play somewhere else. I'd suggest maybe he could play somewhere else, you know? And if you want to recruit that player and 4 or 5 different scouts have said, I think he could play wing back, then you know you might have that option in the future to do that, of course. Ideally, you want players that look like they could play in every position, but they don't exist and they cost a lot of money. So, of course, you have to recruit specifically for a profile within a formation because it's very important because profiles are different. Like you said, if you're recruiting for a back 2 centre backs, you could argue that Biol wouldn't be your number 1 target. If you're recruiting for a back 3 and you need a big central centre back, you could argue Biol would be a perfect target.
Absolutely.
Right? Same for Rodon and Strauch. Same for Goodmanson. Same for Bogle. You know, you could look at all them players. Okafor. You could look at Mecha. You could Calvert-Lewin. You could look at Aronson. What are you recruiting him for? Buonanotte. You know, players are different and formations help outline what profile you can get within that role. It's not straight line. It's not linear. You know, you might have, I'm just looking at them, like, for example, a creative midfielder, right? So you're playing a 10. You might be looking for a creative midfielder, right? In that 10 role. Okay. It's not saying you can't play as an 8. Maybe you can, but you'd say that. But what are you recruiting him for? You're recruiting him to play the 10 role. So, of course, formation is important. If you're playing a midfield 3 with no 10, there's just 2 8s and a 6, 2 centre midfielders and a DM for people that don't like the numbers. You know, and you recruit a creator, is he going to work as an 8 when you're not playing a number 10 role? Of course, it's important. It's really important. So I just wanted to say that. I've literally got next to me now. I'm not going to show it because I don't want to show I work for 127 dossier of every player and every role and the key KPIs, the key performance indicators for each role. And that includes roles in positions that the team don't play, by the way, as well. That's wingers. They don't play with wingers, they play with back 3 like we do. It's important. A lot goes into the profile. And that's what Fark kept mentioning, profile. A lot goes into the profile of the player. You're not just looking for a name. You're not just looking for a position. You're looking for the profile within that. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and also before we move on, you know, there's another thing on this formation that people are saying, yeah, but Gudmundsson and Bogle, for example, they were already playing well in this formation with the back 4. You know, the problem was that they were more balanced. Okay, Gudmundsson was getting forward more compared to Bogle because Bogle was more balanced in this position. Now they are thriving. Why they are thriving? Like Bogle in the box at Newcastle, not Newcastle, sorry, at Everton, because I got confused by the stadium. You know, the Gallowgate is similar to the end on the right at the Everton Stadium at Bradley Dockmore. Now, if you look at this one, Gudmundsson and Bogle, they can get forward more because they are covered. Because Ampadu stays back like Adam here, and then they are covered behind them by Strauch and Rodon. They have more balance. They have more opportunities to get forward and be involved offensively, you know, with their forward runs, you know, with the overlaps, compared to the back 4 when they need. But if they went up, we had Strauch exposed or Rodon exposed, you know. And how many times did that happen when we're playing with a back 4? We saw that also at Sunderland, you know, when we switched, you know, and Biol was in a 1v1 against Adingra, if I remember correctly. And Adingra like went into him and Biol was like panicking in that position because he was too exposed. And Biol is not good in the back 4 because with Slovenia, he has 2 block fullbacks, you know, like Karničnik and Janja. They are more balanced compared to ours. Ours are more offensive minded, you know. So he has coverage near him. he didn't have coverage. He was in this area, for example, and they bypassed Bogle with the ball, and then there was Adingra versus Biol, and different pace. Eventually, Adingra shoot, but he didn't score. But yeah, dangerous situation. Otherwise, in a back three, for example, he has coverage to his sides, and the same goes for Gudmundsson and Bogle. They can get forward, but they have a player behind them. So the winger doesn't have an open opportunity to get at his lower centre back. At 2-10 centre backs, because he has 3 players staying back, and also the number 6 operating in this area. So gives us a lot of balance. But to make it sustainable for the long term, you need it at least like hybrid defender, one that can cover both sides if you don't want to spend for 2. Otherwise, a backup centre back and a backup left wing back. Because in the end, Pirlo is not going out. Okay, you are not operating to do that. Even alone, mate. Like loan him out to a club. He scores goal. We stay up. Eventually, his value has risen compared to how it is right now, because he's had a good long spell, score goals, maybe a good World Cup. If they have qualified, you can then make the decision: are we gonna keep him or we want to sell him, because he's out of contract next summer, 2027. When you're actually in the summer of 2026. Okay, is this last year of his contract? Are we gonna keep him? We're gonna start to sell him for something. Of course, you're gonna need to sell him at a lower fee because he's out of contract next summer, and clubs know that they can get him for free the summer after. But at least alone, wasn't going to help him with PSR, of course, but would have helped probably on the long term with PSR, at least for something, because we are not getting probably in the current situation the money that we spent for him, because after a season he hasn't been playing, there's no way a club is going to spend the same amount of money that we spent 2 years ago, right now. But probably Alona could have helped, to boost his consideration in European football right now, and probably master a better sale, this summer for me.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. So yeah, I just wanted to, I think we've been fair in that. Again, this is just our opinion on it. And I just want to say as well, this isn't, well, we'll talk about it. It's not necessarily saying, because people say, look, if we stay up now and we didn't bring any players, we told you so. No, let me clarify. I really like our team.
Yeah.
I really back our players. I really like them. All I'm saying is we could have reduced the risk. If we do get an injury in a position where we're short, injuries happen everywhere, that's fine. But in certain areas, we're covered. Midfield, look, slightly covered there. We've got some decent numbers in midfield, obviously. Even you can look at the wide areas, the creative areas. We've got James coming back now as well. Good. So we've got 5 options there. They might not be the best options in the world, but at least we've got cover that can affect the game. I'm worried about one injury at centre-back. That's it. That's all it needs. That's all it requires. And then we have no centre-backs on the bench.
And that's Alfie Cresswell, mentioned, but he's playing as a midfielder, for the under-21s.
Yeah, playing as a midfielder. I believe he got moved there because he was too short. He could have grown. I've said this. I've not took time to look, but I'm fairly sure he still plays as a midfielder. Yeah, and he was doing really well as a midfielder. That's why they moved him there. He's
I
really
remember
thriving in that role. But Farke brought him up as a centre back option, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know about that. I don't want to finger a young player. I've not seen him in the last few months.
I think he's good. He's probably one of the few good ones that we have in the under-21s. I don't think there's a Premier League quality player there at the minute, honestly. Of course, they have just signed Genge. I think Genge can really improve. But it looks like Charlie Cresswell, Archie Gray. But recently, of course, Gellert came from Wigan. He already had senior appearances there. Greenwood from the Arsenal Academy, they're playing for the under-23s, under-21s. Joseph from Espanyol Academy, but a properly produced only Leeds player going from schoolboys to under-21s and then first team. It's just like, maybe I can be wrong, but of course Leif Davis too. But others like Leif Davis, Charlie Cresswell, and Archie Gray, I can remember, honestly, to be fair, that already, of course, Calvin. Before that, of course, Charlie Taylor, Byram, Mowat, Cook. We used to produce more probably in that decade when we were poorer, compared to now, when we really can bring that academy to the level it used to be, because I don't think we are in the level that, of course, probably in terms of reputation, we still think we are, but in terms of productivity, we are not, honestly.
Even Leif Davis, he came from Morecambe under-18s, so
okay, so not produced locally.
there's a lot into this. I was listening to a pod before I came on about youth development. It's very interesting. A lot of youth development in England and probably in other countries as well is dominated by money, unofficial, giving money to parents for sign for us, we'll give you this, we'll look after you. It's not what it used to be. Everything's a rush, everything's quick. Can I play for the top teams by 19, 20 years old? It's insane. It's really sad to see. There's no rush, and there's so many players you can take out of that didn't rush to get to where they are. Semenyo's a good example who went through the non-league system. Watkins as well, Jamie Vardy. There's so many players that I can think of that didn't rush and are now playing for England or did play for England. In Vardy's case, Premier League top goal scorers, scoring every day, every week for
Watkins
fun.
too. Watkins too from non-league.
Yeah. Like there's so many examples. I always see when I coach, and I was the same. It's not. But now when I'm older, I can see it from the other side. I'm getting 7-year-old kids who say, his parents say, I want my kid to play for Man City. And it's like, right, how do you reply to that? You can't say that's impossible because you just don't want to do that to kids, obviously. And anyone can do anything. It's very, almost impossible. Statistically, it's almost impossible. It's very, very, very ultra extremely rare that that's going to happen. But for me, it's got to be about just every day. How can you become better at football? Can you improve every single day? Don't worry about the clubs. Don't worry about playing for Man City before the age of 15. Worry about getting better. Your chance might come when you're 22. It might come when you're 12. It might come when you're 5, when you've just started. That's a fact. People develop differently. People are in different mindsets at different ages. As a player who always wanted to be a professional footballer, even when it was never realistic, it's good to look on the outside of it now. And I always tell kids when I coach, don't worry about that. That'll happen or it won't. All you can do is every single day practice in a park, at home, when you're here with us, put everything into it, learn, try and become better. And eventually you'll play as high as you can, whether that's non-league, whether that's Sunday league. If you put all your work into it, that'll be the best outcome. And at the end of the day, you'll be happy with what you've done. If you don't make it, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Most people
that's
don't.
The mindset. That's the mindset, mate. Absolutely. Yeah. Just one other thing before we move on. If you can take the graphic out, because my Google Chrome is blocked currently, so I cannot operate and move everything. I was trying to click to put us back, on in front, but it wasn't working. So that's why. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
so final part, I think it's we can talk about the game you're attending tomorrow.
Oh mate, I can't wait. Like I said, this is 17 games in a row without success in the membership, in the queue, ballot, whatever. I can't wait, mate. I genuinely, I'm so excited for it, but it feels like a big game. It feels like a massive game, and I think it is. I don't think it will define our season necessarily, because I think we're better than that as a team. I think we can react to things quite well, and there's a long way to go. We've got a lot of good home games to come. That's my confidence. We've got a lot of teams in and around us to play at home. But this is, I'd say up to now, probably the most important game in terms of what can happen optics-wise, what it can look like for the table, especially for West Ham beat Burnley. We lose to Forest. With a few tough games coming up as well. That gap could be very close, but football, that's how it works. We could be 1 point behind in front of West Ham in a few weeks, and then a few weeks later, we could be 8 again. It swings and roundabouts, but this one feels big for me. It's a big environment. Ellen Road on Friday night under the lights, against a team that needs and wants a win because they want to get away from the relegation zone as well. They've invested in the window. They've got a few new players coming in under Sean Dyche. So yeah, mate, this one feels big. We've had a few big games this season, but this one feels a little different. Maybe it's because I'm going, I don't know. But this one feels a little different for me. Do you agree?
Every game,
something about it just feels different. It feels really important. I don't know.
I think this game can be like the Newcastle and Crystal Palace ones
Mm,
in that season.
mm,
Those games, these are
yeah,
game changers, honestly, because of course you're facing a team that's in that relegation scrap, but it's way better than that. They're playing in Europe.
good,
They
yeah,
have massively invested. Yeah, they have already invested because they have Nico Williams suspended. They have Sells who
yeah,
went off injured
yeah.
in the last game against Palace that they drew 1-1. They got Ortega
Mm,
for 500k, so a
yeah.
cheap deal. It's gonna start for them obviously. Then they
Mhm,
have Brockton Lucanets. Savona is
mm,
injured. Hudson Odoi apparently is a doubt for them. But yeah, if you look at the formation, they were probably, if you look at the last one and probably try to think how they might set up, like Ortega, Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo,
mm,
Nets. Try to he can play, he's ready.
yeah.
Sangare, Henderson, Hudson Odoi, Gibbs White, Dominguez, and Igor Jesus, then
Mm,
they signed Luca. They have other options, of course, on the bench. If you look at their bench, they have
yeah.
Ndoye,
Yeah.
Yates, always reliable, Hutchinson, McAtee,
Hutchinson, McAtee, yeah.
Taiwan, Boni, they have a lot of players. So honestly, and then ask you straight away, I think we need to plan this one very effectively, especially
Mm,
because of the absence of Stack. Biol is a doubt. Justin is probably probably not gonna recover for this one. And but yeah, I think in midfield it's vital. It's solid in the midfield duo or trio.
mm,
So I would like honestly to see. I would have said Ampadu and Stack, but now I'm saying Ampadu and Tanaka. To be fair, I know
mm,
that won't happen because Tanaka is down the pecking order now. But I think, especially looking at the game at the City Ground, we need a player that's capable of moving quickly
yeah.
because they are capable with Gibbs White moving in the final third.
Mm,
Hudson is a threat. Anderson likes to get forward. Anderson. They have also Yates, another player that can progress.
Oi,
Yeah, and Doye, Hutchinson, McAtee. There are plenty of players that can cause you problems without the positioning. So
yeah.
we like a quick, effective player. That can also be a good player in the build up with his positioning. I think
Mm,
Tanaka can be the right pick. If you're playing, like, I would like to see Aronson and Buonanotte behind DCL, but if that doesn't happen, I go with the Nyonto and Aronson, to be fair.
mm,
With Ampadu and Tanaka behind, because we need quick players, to be fair. We need to
yeah.
stay up. If we go deep like we did against Everton in the second half and Arsenal, I fear a 2-0 for them, something like that. Honestly, I don't like that, honestly, because we can go toe to toe if we plan that in a good way, because that Daesh is not like the offensive master of football.
Mm,
So if planned in a proper way, and I think it all goes down to picking the good player to play beside Ampadu.
yeah.
That's where it's going to be decided for me, because that
Yeah.
player is going to be massive between staying higher up the pitch or going too
Mm,
deep and opening ourselves to threats.
yeah. I agree. I think it's going to come down a lot to one-on-ones in certain positions in the pitch. Quite different to the Arsenal that came about. That was more about our defensive shape. Can we be solid? Can we attack? This one's going to be purely for me about one-on-ones in certain areas. Looking at Hudson-Odoi, Dominguez, the wingers they've got against our fullbacks, our wing-backs. Can we get back quick? Can we cover them spaces that they're going to run into? Can we keep Gibbs White quiet? That's down to whoever marks him. I'm assuming that'll be Ampadu in and around him. Big game for
Yeah,
Ampadu in there. Big game. Big player against him, a good player. So this will be a big test for Ethan Ampadu, our captain. So hopefully he can step up for that. Looking at again and looking at DCL up top against, I'm assuming it'd be Murillo and Milinkovic.
yeah, yeah,
Serious test. We have to help him out. We cannot they can isolate him easily if we don't help him out. They're good defenders. Milinkovic will love that physical duel. He will.
yeah,
So we've got to provide the balance. We've got to help him out. We've got to vary our play a little bit. We can't just go direct because he won't win all of them. Not against these guys. We've got to have the players around him. Aronson as well. Physical
Aina,
game. Yeah, Aina
yeah,
again. Attacking threat as well.
yeah,
Big game. Big game for it's going to be a hard working one. This is one way we've got to put. This is just one of them for me, mate, where it's going to be very much about a lot of the physical aspects, hard work, winning your duels, covering space well, helping each other out, the usual stuff, marking your men, getting up the pitch well, providing balance if you're in midfield. There's a lot of physical attributes in this. I think they're a very physical team in terms of speed and directness, especially with Igor Jesus up top as well.
Good player.
Yeah, this is
running
a
behind,
physical game.
especially good running behind too, despite
so this could be a fun one. To be honest, for a neutral, this could be a fun game. It might not be in typical Leeds fashion. It could turn out to be we slog a 2-0. I'll take that. Don't care. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm glad Williams is out because he's quality. Caused us a lot of problems last time, I believe. Or I think he did. I think it was him, yeah. So, physical game, mate. But we're at Ellen Road under the lights. If there's a physical game anywhere, I'm glad it's at Ellen Road under the lights. And now the players need to step up to that mantle now. How many's left? 12? Is it 13 games left in the season?
Yeah. So, especially, like you said, Friday night lights too. So, yeah, like you said, there's 12, 13, that's pivotal. That's pivotal, honestly. That's pivotal. I believe Farke has the tools, in his pocket tactically to outsmart Sean Dyche. It also depends on how they will try to approach this one. But for me, Dyche will try to approach it by staying high and try to press our backline with Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi. And we know that they have played with Nico Dominguez, usually interchange also with Anderson, when they are down that side, but also have Ndoye, If I were him, honestly, I won't play Dominguez, so I would play Ndoye. Ndoye on one side and Hudson-Odoi, if he's available, of course, because he had that problem at the arm, in that game.
True.
But
I add to that.
They have the tools.
A game where Bogle massively struggled was when he was at Sheffield United and he played against Hudson-Odoi, who was on the left.
Yeah.
And he massively struggled. He beat him 3 or 4 times with ease. So I won't be surprised if that's something that might be repeated, potentially. But we'll see. Anything else to add on the game, mate? Oh.
Nah, honestly, hope we win because it's massive. It's massive, and I know that people will expect, us, especially at Ellen Road, to get those 3 points, but it's absolutely a difficult game. They are not a team built for a relegation battle. That might play something, because these players are not used to playing a relegation battle, the Forest ones. But also they have quality above the level, the position they're in the table. So don't expect okay, we're going toe-to-toe with them. Yes, tactically, but in terms of quality, they have much better quality than us all over the pitch. Midfield, wingers like Ndoye, attacking midfielders, McAtee, Hutchinson, strikers, look at the strikers, they have, now Chris Wood is injured, but Taiwo, Avoni, Igor Jesus, and Luca. I don't rate him, to be fair, but they have also Luca and Wood that is gonna return from injury, so they have four number 9s and proper tall number 9s, so they're not built for this. They're not built for this, and they have invested in order to get out of this. So proper game changer for me, this one.
But we've got heart, desire, togetherness, good spirit, never give up mentality. It's going to be a good one, man. I can't wait. I'm excited.
You sounded like that picture of Ancelotti, power of love, with all the players, with the cigar, Vinicius, the celebrations, Guardiola doing all the tactics, Ancelotti, power of friendship.
Yeah. It's true. A lot of football is about that. It's mental, mentality. It's about the environment. And we've got a good one this year. We've got a good environment. I wish we added to it, but we've got a good environment. So,
to bring other people to live that environment,
Yeah,
come and visit. Come and visit.
Please come and visit for it.
Experience the Leeds experience. Enjoy the Leeds experience.
Apparently, no one wanted to, but anyway, Right, I think we'll leave it there, mate. A good hour and a half. Gonna get this uploaded. Don't know why I'm saying this because people will be watching anyway. But anything else to end on, Andrea?
Nah, as usual, marching on together. Leeds.
Right. See you guys in a bit. Thank you for the support, and hopefully we win because I spent a lot of money on this game. So see you in a bit. Bye bye.
Enjoy, mate.